She said taking a week apart would help us grow. Those were her exact words. Calm, deliberate, like she had practiced them in the mirror 100 times. But by the first day, I realized something brutal. I wasn't waiting anymore. The moment the door clicked shut behind her, the silence in the house felt like a joke. Our place still smelled like her shampoo. Her perfume clung to the pillows, but it felt like she had already been gone for years. I sat there on the couch, staring at the clock, realizing that space was just her polite way of saying she didn't want me anymore. The longer I sat, the angrier I got. Around midnight, I opened her laptop. She left it on the desk like she didn't care if I saw anything. And that's when I found it, a draft email. It wasn't even hidden, just sitting there, bold letters screaming at me. I'll tell him after the weekend. He won't fight me. He never does. I swear my chest tightened so much I thought I'd black out. She was talking about me. Claire was planning her clean break while I was sitting here thinking a week apart would save us. I don't even remember what I did next. My hands were shaking, my vision blurred with rage. I just know that by sunrise, I was driving somewhere I had no business going, straight to the address she left in an open rideshare receipt, an address I'd never seen before. And that's where the first day of our so-called week apart turned into something I'll never forget. By the time I pulled up to Willow Lane, my heart was pounding like I'd run a marathon. It was one of those quiet suburban streets where every house looks like it's hiding secrets behind perfectly trimmed hedges. The address from her rideshare receipt led me to a pale blue house with a porch swing that creaked slightly in the morning breeze. I sat there in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white, wondering what I'd find if I walked up to that door. I should have turned around. I should have driven home and confronted her like a normal husband. But something in me had snapped. Maybe it was that email draft. Maybe it was the way she had looked at me like I was already disposable. Whatever it was, I needed to know the truth. I parked a few houses down and watched. A man came out of the front door around 9 a.m. He wasn't some stranger. I recognized him immediately. It was Mark, her coworker. The guy she always swore was like a brother to her. I felt sick. He was in sweatpants and a t-shirt, holding a mug of coffee like he owned the place. My mind flooded with every time she laughed a little too hard at his jokes, every time she brushed off my concerns about their late-night work calls. I didn't plan what happened next. I got out of my car, marched straight up to that porch, and rang the doorbell. When she opened the door, wearing his shirt, not even her own, she froze. For a second, neither of us said anything. I just stood there, seeing everything I needed to know written across her face. "Russ, what are you doing here?" she stammered. Her voice was a mix of guilt and fear, but not nearly enough fear, not nearly enough regret. I wanted her to feel the way I felt in that moment, like the floor had given way beneath me. "You said a week apart," I said, my voice low, shaking. "But I see you didn't need a week. You just needed him." Mark appeared behind her, holding his mug, looking at me like I was some unwanted salesman. He didn't even look ashamed. That look, the smug, quiet confidence, burned into me. My hands trembled, and for a second, I thought I might lose it completely. But I didn't. I just turned around and walked back to my car, leaving her standing there in the doorway. By the time I got home, I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't even heartbroken. I was furious, and that fury was about to pull me into a storm I didn't know I had inside me. When I got back to our apartment, it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a crime scene. Every photo on the wall, every sweater she left on the back of a chair, every single thing had a different weight now, like it was mocking me. I sat on the floor in the living room, my head in my hands, replaying what I'd just seen. Claire in that man's shirt, standing there like I was the intruder, like I was the one ruining her perfect little secret life. The anger that bubbled up inside me wasn't the kind you can cry out or scream out. It was quiet, ice cold, the kind that makes your hands shake when you're doing nothing at all. I opened her laptop again, but this time I dug deeper. I knew her passwords, not because I'm some control freak, but because we used to trust each other with everything. I found an entire thread of emails between her and Mark. It wasn't just flirting. It was a roadmap of betrayal, every step carefully planned. They talked about me like I was some clueless idiot, a nice guy, who wouldn't make a fuss when she finally broke free. I read every word, and each one cut deeper than the last. She even wrote about how she wished I would find someone more suited to me, like she was doing me a favor by tearing my life apart. By the time I finished reading, I felt like I'd aged 10 years in an hour. I didn't just want answers anymore. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done. That night, I started packing her things. Every sweater, every picture frame, every pair of shoes. I threw them into trash bags and left them in the hallway like they were toxic. But I didn't stop there. I printed out some of the worst emails I'd found, the ones where she mocked me or said she felt dead inside when she was with me, and I taped them to the fridge. Petty? Maybe. But I wanted her to walk in and see her words staring back at her. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table with a glass of whiskey, staring at my phone, half expecting her to call. But she didn't. Instead, around 2 a.m., I got another text from that same unknown number that had messaged me before. This one made my blood run cold. "She's not done lying, Russell. You should check the hotel by Harbor Street." I stared at it for a full minute, my pulse thundering in my ears. Who was this person? And why were they feeding me this information? I knew I should just ignore it and move on, but some sick part of me needed to know what else she was hiding. The next morning, I found myself driving toward Harbor Street, my mind a mess of anger, pain, and curiosity. What I found there would push me over the edge in ways I wasn't prepared for. When I pulled into the parking lot of the Harbor Street Hotel, the morning sun was just starting to burn through the mist hanging over the city. The place wasn't glamorous. It was the kind of hotel you'd rent if you didn't want anyone to know where you were. I sat in my car for nearly 20 minutes, gripping the steering wheel, trying to convince myself that this was insane. What was I even hoping to find? Proof? More pain? I already knew the truth, but something about that message, the certainty of it, pulled me in like gravity. I walked into the lobby with my heart hammering in my chest. The smell of cheap coffee and disinfectant hit me as I approached the front desk. "Can I help you, sir?" the woman behind the counter asked. I tried to act casual, but my voice came out tight. "I'm looking for my wife, Claire Bennett," I said. I didn't even care how desperate I sounded. The receptionist gave me a polite smile that quickly turned suspicious. "We don't give out guest information." I expected that, but I wasn't going to let it stop me. I leaned in and lowered my voice. "Look, I know she's here. I'm not asking for her room number. But could you just tell me if she checked in?" She hesitated, her eyes darting toward the manager's office, and in that hesitation, I knew. Claire was here. My stomach twisted so hard it felt like I was going to throw up. I stepped away from the desk, pacing the lobby like a lunatic. I didn't know what I was going to do if I saw her. Part of me wanted to storm the place, rip open every door until I found her. Another part of me, this darker, quieter voice, wanted to wait, to watch, to see her walk out with him so I could see the betrayal on her face when she realized I knew everything. And then, as if the universe wanted to twist the knife, I saw her. Claire walked out of the elevator with Mark, both of them laughing about something, their arms brushing like they were teenagers sneaking around after curfew. She was wearing that same red dress she'd packed, her hair perfectly done, like she hadn't just left her husband to rot. I froze, standing half-hidden behind a pillar, watching them like some ghost. Mark put his hand on her lower back as they walked toward the parking lot, and that tiny gesture, so casual, so familiar, made my blood boil. I felt like I was going to lose it right there in the lobby. But I didn't. I waited until they walked out, and I followed them at a distance, my hands shaking on the steering wheel as I trailed their car. I wasn't even thinking anymore. I just knew I needed to see where they were going, what else she was hiding from me. The road ahead of me was blurry with anger, and I had no idea that following them would lead me to something far worse than just cheating. I followed their car for almost half an hour, my pulse a steady throb in my ears, my mind caught in this strange fog where everything felt both razor-sharp and completely surreal. They didn't drive to some romantic hideaway or cozy restaurant. Instead, Mark's car pulled into the back lot of a weathered brick warehouse at the edge of town. The building looked abandoned, its windows dusty and streaked, the kind of place you'd expect kids to dare each other to break into, not somewhere for whatever this was. I parked far enough back to stay hidden, but close enough to see them step out of the car. Claire's laugh echoed across the lot as Mark unlocked a side door with a key. A key. My stomach churned at the familiarity of it, like this was their secret spot. She disappeared inside with him, the heavy door swinging shut, and for a moment, I just sat there gripping the steering wheel, breathing hard. What was this place? What were they doing here? I needed answers, but I also felt like every answer would rip me apart. Against every ounce of common sense, I got out of my car. The gravel crunched under my feet as I crept closer, hugging the walls, trying to stay in the shadows. There was a small window near the back, and when I peeked inside, I nearly dropped to my knees. It wasn't just Claire and Mark in there. There were other people too, maybe 5 or 6, gathered around a table cluttered with papers, open laptops, and what looked like stacks of cash. Mark was talking fast, his voice low but sharp, like they were planning something. Claire sat beside him, leaning in, nodding. My brain was screaming at me to get out, to call someone, but I couldn't move. I pressed my ear closer to the glass, straining to catch a word, a phrase. That's when I heard Claire's voice, calm and deliberate, cutting me like a blade. Russell is too soft. He won't fight anything I tell him. Once this is done, I'll be out of there for good. I stumbled back from the window like I'd been punched in the gut. It wasn't just cheating. This was something darker, something I couldn't even begin to wrap my head around. I didn't wait to hear more. I ran back to my car, fumbling with the keys, my hands trembling so badly I could barely start the engine. As I drove away, my thoughts were all over the place. What was Claire caught up in? Who were those people? Was she using me, the entire time, for something bigger than just this affair? And the worst part was that a tiny, pathetic part of me still wanted her to love me, still wanted her to walk through the door and say she'd made a mistake. But I knew one thing. I couldn't just sit back and let this go. If she thought I was too soft to fight, she was about to find out how wrong she was. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that warehouse, those strangers with their cold faces and piles of cash, and Claire's voice saying I was too soft, like I was some disposable fool she'd been stringing along. I sat at the kitchen table in the dark, a half-empty whiskey bottle in front of me, replaying every moment of our marriage. Were all those late nights, working late, just rehearsals for lies? Did she ever love me? Or was I just a placeholder while she built this double life? By dawn, I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to sit here and let her burn me to the ground. I was going to find out what they were hiding, even if it meant tearing myself apart in the process. I started by digging through everything she left behind. Old receipts, emails, even the junk drawer she always kept locked. I found a prepaid phone wrapped in a scarf at the back of the closet. When I turned it on, there were only 2 messages, both from a number I didn't recognize. Wednesday, 10 p.m. Same spot. Don't bring him. My stomach sank as I stared at the screen. Same spot. Was that the warehouse? And Wednesday was tomorrow. I needed to know what was happening before then. I don't know what possessed me, but I left her a note before I left the apartment that morning. It wasn't smart. Hell, it was probably the dumbest thing I could have done, but I wanted her to know I wasn't clueless anymore. I wrote, I know. You're not as good at hiding as you think. We'll talk when you get back. I didn't sign it, didn't add anything else. I just left it on the kitchen counter, right where she'd see it. Then I drove back to Willow Lane. The warehouse gnawed at me, but I needed to start somewhere. Mark's car was parked out front, but I didn't care if he saw me. I knocked on the door, and when he opened it, I was half a second away from smashing my fist into his smug face. But instead, I just stood there, forcing myself to stay calm. Where's Claire? I asked. My voice cracked a little, but I didn't care. Mark smirked, leaning on the doorframe like he owned the world. Russ, buddy, this isn't healthy. She needed space, remember? The way he said it, like he was enjoying every ounce of my humiliation, made something snap inside me. Cut the crap, I hissed. I know about the warehouse. I know about the money. What the hell are you two doing? For the first time, his smirk faltered. Just a flicker, but I saw it. He stepped back, and his tone dropped an octave. You don't know what you're talking about. Stay out of it. And then he slammed the door in my face. I stood there for a minute, shaking, feeling like I was drowning in something I didn't understand. But I wasn't going to back off. Not now. That night, I parked outside the warehouse and waited. I didn't know what I'd see, but I knew one thing. If Claire walked in there again, I'd be ready. Wednesday night arrived like a storm brewing on the horizon, heavy and dark with the weight of what I knew was coming. I parked 2 blocks away from the warehouse, sitting in my car with the engine off, the windows cracked just enough to let the cool night air in. Every sound seemed amplified, the distant rumble of traffic, the hum of streetlights, my own heartbeat pounding like a drum in my chest. I kept asking myself if I was insane for doing this, for not just walking away and saving whatever dignity I had left. But that note I'd left for Claire on the counter haunted me. The way she'd probably read it and smirk, thinking I was still just the weak, gullible husband who wouldn't dare confront her. I needed her to see I wasn't that man anymore. At 9:45, headlights swept across the street, and there she was. Claire's car pulled up quietly, as if she was trying not to draw attention, and Mark was already standing by the side entrance, waiting for her. Watching them together felt like a slow blade twisting in my gut. She didn't even look nervous. If anything, she looked alive, happier than I'd seen her in months, like I had been the weight holding her down all along. They disappeared into the building, and I waited 5 minutes before I followed. The side door wasn't locked. It groaned as I pushed it open, the sound echoing through the dark hallway beyond. I slipped inside, my breath shallow, and followed the faint sound of voices coming from deeper within the building. The air smelled like dust and old oil, and every creak of the floorboards beneath my feet felt like it was announcing me to the world. I stopped when I reached a cracked door at the end of the hall, the dim glow of a single lamp spilling out through the gap. What I saw when I peeked inside didn't look like some casual affair or secret lover's hideout. There was a table in the middle of the room, covered with documents, maps, and stacks of cash. A laptop screen displayed what looked like bank account transfers, numbers I couldn't even wrap my head around. Claire was sitting next to Mark, her face serious as they discussed something with a tall man in a gray jacket I'd never seen before. He was giving orders, actual orders, about moving the next shipment and making sure nobody talks. It sounded like something out of a bad crime movie, but the way they all listened told me it was deadly serious. Then Claire said something that froze me in place. "Once this is done, I'll cut ties with him completely. He'll believe anything I tell him. He's always been that kind of man." The him was me. She was talking about me like I was some idiot puppet she'd been manipulating this entire time. My hands curled into fists, and I felt this boiling rage I'd never experienced before. I must have made a noise because the tall man stopped mid-sentence and turned toward the door. I ducked back, pressing myself against the wall, my heart slamming like a hammer against my ribs. I heard footsteps, Mark's voice saying something like, "I think I heard something." I bolted down the hallway, moving as fast as I could without making more noise, and slipped out through the back door, my lungs burning. I sat in my car for a long time, shaking, my mind racing. This wasn't just about Claire cheating anymore. This was something dangerous, something illegal, and I was in way over my head. But there was one thing I knew for certain. I couldn't let her see me broken. I needed a plan, and I needed it fast. I didn't sleep a second that night. My hands wouldn't stop trembling, my head replaying every single thing I'd seen and heard inside that warehouse. The betrayal, the lies, the danger. It was like my entire life had been flipped inside out. But when the sun came up, a strange kind of clarity washed over me. For the first time in months, maybe years, I wasn't waiting for Claire to save our marriage. I wasn't waiting for her apologies or explanations. I wasn't waiting at all. I was done being the man she could push around like a pawn. I wasn't going to break. I was going to walk away, and I was going to win my life back. I spent the morning cleaning our apartment, not because I cared about the place anymore, but because I wanted to erase every trace of her. I boxed up her clothes, her makeup, even the stupid decorative pillows she loved so much. I didn't rage or smash things. I was done letting her control my emotions. Every item I packed felt like I was taking back a piece of myself she'd stolen. When I was finished, I left the boxes by the door, ready for her to collect whenever she felt like slinking back into the life she'd burned. Around noon, I sat down with my laptop and gathered everything I'd found, the emails, the messages, even photos I'd snapped of the warehouse with my phone. I wasn't sure exactly what they were planning, but I knew enough to make the police pay attention. I sent it all anonymously to the local authorities, every file, every shred of evidence. I didn't want revenge anymore. I just wanted this poison out of my life, out of my head. That evening, Claire finally called. Her voice was sweet at first, as if nothing had happened. "Russ, we need to talk," she said softly, like she still had me wrapped around her finger. But I didn't let her play her game. "No," I said, my voice calm, almost too calm. "We don't need to talk. You need to pick up your things. After that, we're done." She tried to argue, but I hung up. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. The next day, I got a call from a detective. He didn't say much, just that the information I sent had helped with an ongoing investigation. I didn't ask questions. I didn't want to know the details. Whatever trouble Claire and Mark had stirred up was no longer my burden to carry. Weeks have passed now, and the strangest thing is how light I feel. It's like I can finally breathe again. I started running in the mornings, cooking meals for myself, and reconnecting with old friends I'd let drift away. Every day feels like a small victory, like I'm slowly rebuilding the man I was before all of this. I'm not bitter anymore. I'm grateful. Because losing Claire didn't ruin me. It showed me I had more strength than I ever thought I did. The other night, I stood on the balcony with a cold beer, watching the sunset bleed across the sky, and I realized something. I'm not the man she left. I'm someone new, someone better. And for the first time in a long time, I'm excited for what's next.